Welcome to the fifth event in our Women in Salesforce series. For those of you that might be new to our events, Women in Tech is a Third Republic effort that challenges the gender imbalance that exists among people in the field of technology. Our mission is to connect, inspire, and develop the careers of women working in the ecosystem in order to make technology a more diverse and inclusive working environment, with a vision to empower our community members to be change agents in the world of tech. This evening, we're joined by Deena Tearney, founder and CEO of Pacific Point, and Shannon Renee, the technical product manager at Fonteva, both incredibly experienced and successful Salesforce professionals who will be discussing topics on how you can get the most out of your career in the ecosystem. I'd like to invite Deena to go ahead and grab the mic. Thank you, Deena.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks to Sarah and Cara for inviting me to come today. I'm really excited to see everyone's faces again and talk about careers in Salesforce. You know, really what I wanted to do for my portion of today's talk was to share some top takeaways that can help drive your career from that kind of, we're in the 2021 midpoint, a little bit after the midpoint, but looking at where we're at in this year and thinking about how some of those things that we're seeing in the marketplace could translate into some takeaways that would help drive your career. And I'll just start by saying this is definitely an exciting time to be in tech and specifically in Salesforce. So carpe diem, as they say, let's seize the day, because we don't know when we're going to have opportunities like what we have right here, right now. My name is Deena Tearney. I'm the founder and CEO of Pacific Point. Pacific Point is a Salesforce consulting firm. We're headquartered in Honolulu, and we also have an office in Denver and Sydney, Australia, and Singapore. And what we like to say that we do is that we bring business and technology together, and we create valuable solutions for our clients on the Salesforce platform. So again, kind of the way I was planning to approach today, you know, with that vantage point in my role as the founder and CEO of Pacific Point, I'll approach my time today with kind of an overview of what we're seeing in the market, what I'm seeing as I talk to our customers and our clients, and then identify some takeaways that could help drive your career. And I'll spend probably these first, I'll take about 10 to 15 minutes or so and talk on that. I'll leave about 5 minutes because I'd love to hear from you in terms of your thoughts and questions that you have. And that's how I plan to approach today's chat. So sounds like a plan, hopefully, good with that. So I'll start with the three takeaways, just three that are very simple, I think, for us to think about. The first thing is taking a step back. What's really interesting with us from, you know, the vantage point that I have and talking with our customers is I'm noticing that a lot of customers in 2021 have taken a step back. They're taking stock. They're really looking at their organizations, what's working well for them, what really isn't, and they're starting to reconsider priorities. They're re-looking at where investment of dollars is going, where their time is spent. And I would say, like, when you look before the pandemic, a lot of our customers, it was just full steam ahead, you know, so much stuff that was just running forward with technology initiatives. And not that that hasn't stopped, but I think when the pandemic happened, what we saw was a lot of companies were reacting. There's a lot of reaction that happened in 2020, and a lot of the initiatives that we took on as a company and a consulting firm were reacting to what happened, right, in 2020. It was just a crazy time. Now, when we flip the calendar to 2021, what I'm seeing is a lot of companies, like I said, taking that step back, checking themselves, really thinking about who they are, what are they doing well? Again, like I said, what really isn't. And so when I think about how that could translate to you and your career, me and my career, I feel like it is a good time to sort of take a step back, think about what your goals are, what your career aspirations might be, maybe reset a little bit, maybe reshift that and rethink some goals that you set before, maybe they're changing now, thinking about what you maybe know well, what you wish you knew better. So really taking stock, even looking at the people around you, the companies that you work, the company you work for, that you worked for in the past. And so again, like, I think this idea that I've just seen this shift in 2021 where companies are doing that, I think it's also, from a career perspective, a really good idea for us as individuals to take a step back as well and really think about where are we, what are we doing well, and what do we wish we could do better, and take inventory. The second key takeaway is laying the groundwork. for big plans. And so when I look, it's funny because like in Q1, I would say that was when I really started to see companies telling me like, oh, we're rethinking these things, we're looking at where we're at, we're reshifting priorities. And then some of those companies, as the year kind of has progressed, they're starting to lay some groundwork. And what that's translated to for them is as we talk to these companies, we're seeing them strategize, make different types of plans, setting maybe some new goals and objectives that are becoming more clear for them, maybe a little bit more of a little reset or refresher, bringing more clarity to where they want to go. And then that groundwork starts to get laid. So we talk to customers about things, because now they're thinking, okay, if I'm resetting, what are some of the things that need to be in place? So again, talking to customers, many of our clients, they're doing strategic hires, executive teams changing, they're reorganizing their teams, maybe looking at defining a technology roadmap that might be more aligned to this reset vision, if you will, or reset set of objectives. And the other thing that's really cool is a lot of companies that, as I'm talking to them about these new objectives and new goals that they have, they're really rallying their teams around these plans and around these ideas that they have, and getting their input, taking to take those actions that are necessary to sort of put all the pieces in place, get processes kind of cleaned, understand where the technology is going to go, set the team up for success, right? And so all those things, all those pieces, putting those pieces together and in place so that they have, they can enable their success of those plans, is really what we're seeing, right? Making sure the right teams there, the right skills, the technologies, and that is really what's going to launch them kind of moving forward. So again, taking that into consideration, for all of us as individuals thinking about your career, I would definitely say, once you've gone through that, take a step back and you think about where those outcomes might take you next. Now it's time to start laying some groundwork. And maybe as you set some of those new goals, thinking about how maybe you can reorganize and restructure sort of where you're at. What new goals might you have? And I think another really cool thing about that, like I mentioned about companies getting input from their teams more, I think getting advice from your mentors, rallying the people in your life around you to put you in a position that allows you to reach those goals. One simple thing might be talking to your boss about what those goals might be, what is important to you, what you're motivated to sort of do, and where you want to grow. As an example, are really great things to talk about with, the obvious one is your boss or your manager, but other, colleagues around you as well, so that they can give you ideas, whether it be a mentor or someone like that in your circle. And so, even in our own company, I can say that we've had, in the last, all the time, I'm always asking everybody, what their goals are and what their objectives are, and they change, right? Everybody's goals and objectives change over time. But even more recently, I've had someone come to the team and tell me they're very interested in technical leadership roles at our company. And they came to me with really specific suggestions about how they felt like they could lead some areas. And, a few months passed and they now are in a position of leadership to help drive some of those technology initiatives forward within our company. I've had other people come to me and say, hey, Deena, I'm really interested in some industry experience. I want to get into health and life sciences. And so when I know that, for me, and when those opportunities have come up, I've been able to assign that kind of work to those people. But again, it's not always possible, so this is my story. But I think the point is, talk to your managers, talk to the mentors that you have in place, start laying so that you can start to lay some of that groundwork to put you in a position to meet some goals that you've reset now that you've taken that step back. The other point is sort of a go forward. So my third takeaway is your go forward. So what's been really cool about the year is, and again, we're only in August, so we'll see how things go. But, at the beginning of the year, started as early as Q1, again, I've seen people take a step back, rethinking things, taking stock, taking inventory. Then I saw them starting to make plans and sort of figure out, okay, I've got these roadmaps and I've got these strategic hires that I'm doing, and these things are now set in place and my priorities have changed. But what's really cool is the outcomes, where I'm seeing some of their go forward plans And there are a lot of the same things that we've seen in past as it relates to Salesforce specifically, but there are some really interesting things that have changed in 2021 about where clients are heading with their Salesforce roadmaps. And I'd like to just kind of run through those. And again, like these are what I'm seeing. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's a technical area that you need to branch into. But I think what's really interesting is there's been so much more focus by companies on digital touch points that are directly with the customer. That's how 2021 has been slightly different. I mean, we do all the typical things in the Salesforce with the core application, upgrading the applications for your internal users, automating processes to drive efficiencies, standardizing and simplifying process, leveraging all the cool features of Salesforce. We do a lot of migrating off of legacy systems or consolidation of technology. But I will say what's been really interesting about this year is there's more about digital touch points that go directly to the customer. So some of the top three that I can think of here would be digital marketing automation. So it's a lot on marketing. So segmenting customers, putting them on journeys, thinking about, so for an example, it might be customers who are, some of our customers who are looking at past client customers of theirs and looking at, okay, this person was interested in this product or bought these products maybe 2 years ago, a year ago. Now, how can I bring them back to come get another product or another thing that kind of relates to that? So they're segmenting and they're trying to be doing some really smart digital marketing automation. Again, in the Salesforce world, that's for us mostly Marketing Cloud. So I'll lay that out there. Marketing automation has just been a big one for us. The second one that I've seen a lot of customers going through is this self-service and online services. The idea of submitting information online through a customer portal has just been a huge, I can't even name how many clients are just looking at and implementing Experience Cloud. It was Community Cloud before, now it's Experience Cloud. But the point is that online submission, whether it be an application or just a query or a case for a service, it could be any kind of online experience that you're now putting at the fingertips of your customer. And related to that, by the way, this year we've seen much more with mobile publisher. If you're not familiar with that, you can take a Salesforce community or Experience Cloud site and then put that, use mobile publisher and put that as a customer app, that's your own branded customer app in the in your iPhone store, your Google Play store. So we're again putting something in the customer's hands that really gets them to engage directly with them. Again, this year's been really different in that regard. So again, this is just food for thought for you guys as you think about your career. The third one is bots, knowledge, live chat, things like that. So Salesforce has a product called Digital Engagement, and we've seen a lot more clients looking at how they can provide that, FAQ experience or help kind of get people the answers to the commonly asked questions and provide multi-channel support to their customers. So that's been probably the third one that I would name. So Marketing Cloud for marketing automation, Experience Cloud, maybe mobile publisher for self-service and online services, and then digital engagement with bots, knowledge, chat, things like that. So again, there's still the same things that have been there in the past. What I would say would be really unique about this year that's different is a large focus by companies on improving the digital touch points that they have directly with the customer. So in summary, I would say, it's taking a step back for yourself, just like the companies are doing now in 2021, laying the groundwork, getting all the pieces in place so that you can execute on those big plans. And 3, it is the go forward planning. So I just popped up my summary slide and of course my contact details, but I would love to just pause here, see what you think, see if you're seeing similar things in the market, and also just ask if you have any questions about sort of what I ran through.
I'm definitely seeing an increase in communities. It's kind of crazy. It's exploding. I started just with one little community to share student information, and then it turned into 5 others. And now I'm actually working for a consultancy where we set up customer portals. So yeah.
It's a huge area, and I think Salesforce has made some really great investments in that product as well. So it's an area that I would highly, Marketing Cloud, Experience Cloud, those getting familiar with how they go will definitely put you in a good position there.
I had a question in regards to, each one of these clouds has a lot of information and a lot of sort of specialization. I'm assuming that the expectation would be that you would sort of focus in on one of those, right? Or is it expected that you know all of them?
Yeah, I think it'd be really tough to know all of them. I think maybe in that, take a step back phase, really thinking about what do you already know is a good kind of inventory for yourself. And then also like, where do you want, what areas is it industry, or is it product area? Is it some specific thing that you want to try to get more of? And then, that'll drive, because I think to your point, Ruby, it's really tough to like do it all. So when you kind of go, okay, well, I have base knowledge on these 3 things, maybe where could I go from here? Right. And then you can start to build upon that. And I think there's no singular path. I think even if you were to talk to anybody in the Salesforce space, you would hear a completely different set of, experiences, I would say. But, there are others on here. Anybody else want to chime in?
I would agree that it's kind of difficult to be an expert of everything. I don't personally know all the clouds. I think it's good to have a focus, but also important to have a good understanding of overall. So you need to at least be able to have conversations and communicate some level around all the clouds for your knowledge, but it's definitely something where you can get a specialization in a certain area.
I was just going to make one last point to all of you, is that, all the work that you put into your career, Ruby, you talked about different clouds and all the work that you put in, no one can take that away from you. So put it in and remember it's yours. So anyways, I'll end there.
Thank you so much, Deena, for joining us tonight. And at this time, I would love to welcome Shannon to take the mic, so to speak.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Shannon Renee Zadanowicz, and I'm the technical product manager at Fonteva. Fonteva is a Salesforce ISV. So for those of you who don't know what that means, Salesforce is a great platform. They have a lot of apps. We're an app. So our product is built on the Salesforce platform. We leverage all of the power of Salesforce best in breed. And what we do is we build software for membership associations. We also have event software that a lot of our customers use. And we service a lot of nonprofit government agencies. And it's a fun story how I landed at Fonteva. So I'll kind of cover that. I'm going to take a slightly different approach than Deena did. I'm going to talk about my experience and kind of where my career has grown. Coming to you, I think that's the most value that I can share, is how I've navigated the Salesforce ecosystem as somebody who's been doing software and CRM for, 30 plus years, not to age myself. But so if we talk about my career, I actually started supporting software and it wasn't Salesforce, but it was a CRM. I worked for a financial company. And the one thing I will say that I started at the very beginning of my career, I think as a woman in technology, that was very important, is I learned to say yes to every opportunity that was given to me, and then identify those people that would support me. So I very quickly moved into a lead kind of product specialist role. This is kind of like a product manager for existing footprint of software. So I was the subject matter expert and the end of the line. If there was a problem and nobody else could solve it, it was my job to solve it. This kind of exposed me to a lot of areas of the business outside of the support. So I made relationships with developers, engineers, leadership through different meetings. And that moved me into kind of a business analyst role for the company. Now, this was a large software company, global, 5 continents, 37 countries, I think. So there was a lot of opportunity. And what happened was we got acquired. And this is where my job took a turn. Because of my role as a business analyst, where I was exposed to a lot of areas of the company, when they decided to implement Salesforce, I was put on that implementation team. So I was part of implementing Salesforce for the company. And at the end of that project, 6 months, they said, hey, we're not gonna put you back to your old job. We're just gonna give you this new job, because, you got it, you're an influencer, and we think that you'll be really successful in this role. So that's how I landed in Salesforce, and that was in 2009. So I'm one of those accidental admins, right? From that, I went into a consulting job. So I'd been with this company for 19 years. It was time to exit the arena. I wound up taking a job as a consultant for a small local Salesforce firm. I actually wound up managing the team. That was a last minute change. Kind of on day one, they said, hey, we think that you're the right person. We want to change things up. And so I was managing a team of 7 consultants. And I wasn't there very long, but I will say that that was a very impactful time. It was a very healthy place for me to transition. I am still great friends with everyone that I worked for, the owners. I'm still great friends with them. Just had dinner with them a few weeks ago. And it was super encouraging, experience for me. Ironically, not looking, but through my network, I wound up landing another role where I went back to working for a customer, which then brought me to Fonteva. So I did a little stint, went back to working for a customer, implemented Salesforce, and I implemented Fonteva, which I'd never heard of. But they were confident based on my experience and my knowledge of Salesforce that I could handle it, right? That's what landed me at Fonteva. So ironically, a couple years at that customer, and I decided it was time for me to move on. And I had really networked well with Fonteva and people at Fonteva. And they said, hey, if you're leaving, why don't you come here? And so I took the chance and I said, okay, let's just do it. And so I was there a couple of years as an implementation consultant. I was actually a lead consultant there. So mentoring other consultants as well on their projects. And that's when I wound up being a technical product manager. So I had voiced very clearly what my goals were to leadership at Fonteva. Happy to come in, work in delivery, let's get these clients live. But what I really want to do is build product, right? That's where I want to live. So because I had voiced that, there was an opportunity and they let me interview, and it worked out well for me. So I'm not quite a year in, I'm 10 months into this new role, but it's been really exciting. As you can see, I've kind of run the rampant. I've touched about everything you can do, because I do training, did documentation as part of these roles. I'm just not a developer. So admin, I do config, I do some automation, really good at problem solving design, right? So how did I navigate this path? I'm going to talk about some career options. People don't really realize how big this ecosystem is and what your opportunities are. So, and we'll see where I've worked in all 3 of these realms, but the first place is with customers, and these are some of the roles you can have at a customer. So if you just want to get a smaller company, you can get into a solo admin developer type role. And there's a lot of admin developer where they do both. I know several of them. They're the only one in a company and they kind of run the whole show for Salesforce. You can also be in a team environment. So when I was at MRI Software, we had a team. We had 3 admins, we had 2 developers. Like I said, it was a big company, 35 countries, 5 continents, teams in Australia, in London, Toronto. And we really did a lot in that type of an environment. So if you're more collaborative, that might be something that you want to look at as a larger company where you're in a team environment. Release manager, that's when you look at these larger companies, a lot of them have some type of person that's over the team that kind of controls the direction from a company. So you're not really hands-on doing admin or developer work, but you're more like a product manager for this internal customer, right? There's also a lot of support roles. So when we talk about the sales team, and they often have somebody who's type of an analyst in sales that's doing that advanced reporting and dashboarding, analytics, if that's something you're passionate about, that's an opportunity. And then there's, just general business analysts that do kind of that sales thing for the whole business. Another career, is working for a partner like Deena. So, consultant, they have lead principal roles. So kind of hire consultants. Maybe you're not doing the grunt work, but you're more the big picture person. Solution engineers, developers. So our solution engineers work with our sales team. So they're out figuring out when they're prospecting clients, this is the direction you would go. They're doing a lot of proof of concept. Developers are actually executing for customers there. There's also architect roles, and people don't realize architect is something that's a trend that I think that there are not enough people in architect roles. So if you're, a developer and architect is direction you want to go, that's something I think is really solid for a need. Seems like all the CTAs I know work for Salesforce, and everybody else is trying to find them right now. And then there's this other kind of me, I work for an ISV partner, or you could work for Salesforce, and kind of there's a lot of roles there, whether we need people that support our customers, consultants to implement, leads, solution engineers that build products, solution engineers that work with implementation. Then if you're a training type person who's passionate about education, that's an opportunity. Architects again. Then there's like me, product managers, and then there are director level, roles. So my boss, who's the director of product management, he used to be a product manager. Before that, he was, an implementation consultant like I was. Before that, he was in support. So he kind of worked his way up through the rank. I say this is a really still young company, only 10 years. There's a lot of opportunity at young companies to really move your way up. So these are this isn't everything, but people don't realize how big the ecosystem is. The other thing I want to talk about is some of my tips. So this is how I've navigated, especially as a woman in technology. I think it's important to, have people share tips and have a strategy. So me, networking is a really big thing. And I'm going to show you some examples of people that have been really important and how networking is navigated. But networking can really have an impact on your career. I got my current job because of my networking. That's the only reason I have that job. So, and I got the job before that because of my network. So it really can drive you where you want to be by having a good network and investing in your network. Some ways you can do that: user group. User group was a big thing for me. I'm now a user group leader, but I started just attending. In the middle, I challenged myself and I started presenting at user group. That's how I became a user group leader. Salesforce events, and I'm going to share some resources for you on that. Industry events. So it doesn't have to be a Salesforce event. There's a big Women in Technology group that's based here in Cleveland. I'm engaged with that and, asked to speak at their events. So you have to kind of leverage opportunities, even though they might not be Salesforce specific. Mentors, Deena mentioned that. Mentors, I think, are hugely important in your career. And identify growth opportunities. So I talked about the user group. I had a real problem with imposter syndrome, and not realizing what I had to share and what I had to offer. And we'll talk about him in a second, but there was somebody who really impacted me in this area by challenging me to present at user group and hone those skills. And I went from presenting at user group to presenting at smaller Salesforce events to, I was fortunate enough to be asked by Salesforce. And I've, done sessions and worked the floor, like when you go to Dreamforce. So 3 years in a row, the last 3 in-person Dreamforce events. And I'm not the one who had to submit and wait for them to say yes. They actually reached out and asked me. So that was really exciting for me to be able to say yes, because I had had so much practice. And then social media is a big thing in the Salesforce ecosystem. Twitter is a big resource. Instagram is a big resource. You can network there. You can, find opportunities there. These are kind of my tips on where I would say are levers that you can execute that can help you move your career forward. And I will say this is my biggest thing is knowing what kind of company you want to work for. And I'm not talking about Fonteva doing membership software and working with nonprofits and governments. I'm talking about company culture. So what was really important to me is, and I don't like to say negative, but it'll probably be obvious. I worked at a company for a long period of time. I loved working at that company for a long time. I fell out of love with working for that company as the company lost their identity when they changed. And I left there and took what I knew was a temporary role to figure this out. Where did I want to be? Like, what was the culture and the type of people I wanted to work with and work for? What type of opportunity did I want that company to provide for me? What was the impact I wanted to be able to have, right? So I knew I wanted to build software. That was my sweet spot. I'm really good at design and solving business problems for people, for companies. And that was what I was working for. So you kind of got to figure out what's the impact you want to have. And then what do I have to offer? For me, I had a lot of years of experience working for a large software company. I had frontline experience running Salesforce for companies, including one of their big customers. And it was an impactful customer. So that was what I had to offer. Was I had a different perspective. The other product managers that I work with, the guys on my team, I'm the only chick. It's a boys club. They tease me about it. My calendar's in pink, because I'm the only girl. And they tease me about it, but they call me all the time. When they're working on a feature, they call me and they're like, can I just run this by you? As a customer, how did you approach this? What did you deal with? What did you think about it? And so I bring a different perspective than the other guys because they've never worked for a customer and I have a wealth of years of working for a customer. Just popping this up here really quick. This is where you can find me, Salesforce Shannon, if you remember, at Gmail. But if you do Salesforce Shannon and you drop an A and then in the middle, you'll find me on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm everywhere. Feel free to connect. But I'm going to point something out. I just want to share with you. Here's my LinkedIn. I also encourage you to brand yourself so people know what you do and who you do it for. And your kind of highlight here really shouldn't be your job title. Okay? This should be things about you that are going to make people look at your profile. This makes my boss a little nervous sometimes. I get job inquiries like, are you interested? Are you, all the time through my LinkedIn profile, and he hates it because I share them with him sometimes. But this is a big opportunity that people miss because they put their title in there. And your current title probably isn't what you want to do unless you own a company or you're running a big company that, you're already in your dream job. So leverage that. And then I just want to show you a few people that I've leveraged in my career. So I'm going to talk about John Coppage. I don't know if anybody knows Certified On Demand from Salesforce. John owned Certified On Demand. John was a trainer at Aptus when I met him. He was a user group leader in Cleveland. He's a huge mentor in my life. As you can see now, he's the Director of Success Management at Salesforce. So I've known John since 2009. And he's the person in my career that tells me, he gives me the F when I'm failing myself. He's very honest. That's a high value person to have as a mentor for your career. So I'd encourage everybody to find that person who's going to be transparent and give you that F when you're failing. John's also good at kind of giving that encouraging chat with me, but where I value John is he's very honest with me. He's always, calling me on my crap, to say the worst, right? Jake Fabry, he's our CMO at Fonteva. He's actually the reason I have my job that I have today. So he got to know me when I was at Dreamforce. I was a customer in marketing. He didn't know me as a customer, but I went to the booth and introduced myself. We were in implementation and we hit it off. And he was a big influence on why I took the chance to go to Fonteva. he is, I would say at this point, not only just a personal mentor, but a professional mentor. And I would say that a lot of people say that about him. In fact, I was at a Salesforce event where I was wearing a Fonteva sweatshirt, and Mr. Mark, Salesforce Mark, right, said to me, "Oh, you work for Fonteva. I hear a lot of great things about Jake Fabry." And I was like, I told Jake right away, I was like, "Boy, he knows your name." He's like, "Yeah, I know he knows my name." But those are positive people. You identify those people, make sure you build relationships, leverage those people can really impact your career. I'm going to point out Tracy. Tracy's the national practice manager at Centric. Tracy and I used to work together at a small consulting firm. So when I talk about years later, how I'm still connected with these people, we've both gone different ways, but we still stay connected and network. Tracy will reach out to me and I will reach out to her, validating different things, looking for resources, looking for candidates to hire, just having those resources are important. So this is kind of like when I talk about mentors, connections, network, these are kind of my examples. I would definitely identify who those people are for you. And then here's a resource for you. If you're not familiar, trailblazercommunitygroups.com. You can find all your local events online and in person. You can find your local groups. And here's a great resource. I'm going to end with this note. Great resources. Ladies Be Architects, they have a lot of opportunity for self-education. They are focused at developing women into architects, but they offer a whole level. So like right now they're doing this whole app builder, which is a base level. So I don't know what questions you have. This is kind of my spin on my career, my tips to share with you, and what I would do to navigate the system, the ecosystem in Salesforce.
Thank you so much, Shannon. That was it was really insightful and super interesting.
I really enjoyed hearing you speak because I really like how you clearly outlined your career path and how it was a lot to do with networking. Like you said, like you built upon those connections, you made those connections in each role that you had and then leveraged those for the future. But you also touched on how people feel imposter syndrome. How do you encourage somebody to get over that? Because I feel that way when I'm trying to network, and also I've struggled identifying like who can be a mentor.
So I think for me, I tried to start small, right? So I leveraged the user group. For me, I was just attending the user group, but I took an opportunity to connect with a smaller group of people and try to share. So I would share with them something I was doing, and I would ask them to be honest with me about feedback. So we did a study group. That's where we started, is we were studying for our certification, and we challenged each other to learn something, to teach it. So to be able to teach it to the other two, and we would split it up. There were 3 of us doing it. So I think that's a great opportunity, is find just 2 or 3 people that you're all kind of working towards the same common goal, like say a certification, and split up the homework and say, okay, you're going to learn about this feature and you're going to teach it to us. We're going to learn about this feature, teach it to you. And that gives you some confidence because you get some validation from them. You also get good feedback. I went from that to that's when John said, I really think you should start presenting at a user group, right? Super nervous. What I did was I partnered with somebody else. And I said, okay, let's do a joint presentation. So all the pressure's not on me. It's a shared thing, right? That's a really good comfort zone to put yourself in. And then you move to maybe teaching a session on your own, which is what I did, and then eventually at Dreamforce. So find those baby steps and build on each experience. Start small and then add to it and go a little bigger.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
We have another question. This one's from Adam. He's asking, how much weight does your mentor's advice hold when evaluating a new opportunity? Could their advice kind of persuade your decision already, or that you had a gut feeling on, or can you touch upon that for a bit?
I know for me, I look at my mentor not as someone to influence my decision, but more of kind of check my judgment. So I usually do my pros and cons and stuff ahead of time before a conversation. And I will look at that with John or Jake and, even Tracy and I've had these conversations and I'll say, can you help me validate this? Am I not considering something? Is there something from your experience that I should maybe weigh into? John's the main person I would say in my career, and and even sometimes in my personal life, he never gives me an answer. He more will be an active discussion participant.
You talked about culture, and I've definitely had the experience where I loved a job, fell out of love, and then I've gone to cultures I hated, and then I'm finally at a culture I love. I'm at Fusion Span, by the way. Weird.
Oh, you're one of our partners. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So, and I know Deena because Jacob talked to me about a job for a minute. So this is a weird thing for me. But how can I judge culture when I'm going to a new company? Because Fusion Span's amazing, but the place I was before was not. And there's no way to I couldn't tell how to judge that. Maybe you can.
This is really hard for me because I've landed in what I would call a mistake. And then I was lucky enough that mistake landed me to what I call a blessing, right? So that little middle company that I will talk about, not the one that but when I went to work for a Fonteva customer, it was a challenge. It was a very male-dominated environment, a very old school, I call it the boys club. In fact, when I gave my notice, I told them, I said, do yourself a favor and hire a guy to replace me because your company doesn't like smart women. I was very honest with them and they did listen to me, but I think that I can only tell you what worked for me in this situation is I was exposed to people at Fonteva and I built relationships. The only way you really get a good insight into culture is when you really know some people that work there. So this is where I talk about networking, having the ability to influence you. So I don't have just Jake at Fonteva, but Lawrence Minitry, he's a director at Fonteva. We have a wonderful relationship. I got to know multiple people. You're not always in that situation though, where you have time to do that. But that's why I think networking is good because if I don't know somebody who works there, I probably know somebody who knows somebody. And try to navigate through your connections to get inside information. Or why can't you ask to speak? You don't have to just speak to the people they had you interview. You can say, I want to talk to a couple people that work there and have transparent conversations. I believe in communicating clearly what you want and asking the not so easy questions. I think that, I don't know why you wouldn't ask them. Can I just talk to a couple people that do my job, who I'd be working with?
Yeah. That's a great idea. Hadn't occurred to me to ask that. Thanks, Shannon.
I have a question. So I'm fairly still new in the Salesforce ecosystem, just under a year working at a consultant company. So I was just wondering, if you guys could think back, are there any changes that you would have made early on that you wish you would have kind of known at that time?
I'll tell you something I'm very good at now that I wasn't good at early on in my career. I think now I communicate openly about what I bring to the table and what I want to be doing. So I think you have to have a plan and figure out what a step is to get to that plan, right? And then somehow connect that. So when you think about your conversation, and when I'm not talking about your conversation with just your boss. So for me, it definitely wasn't my boss she wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be. It was in product, right? I was in front of leadership and I had the opportunity to say, hey, I really want to be back in product. I want to build product. I want a product manager role. I made sure that they knew that. So you need to advocate for yourself, I guess. And I wish that I had done that earlier in my career.
I would say from my end, I'm just such a big believer in getting a lot of hands-on experience. And I made the comment at the end, no one can take that away from you, right? So when you know how to do something, it's yours, you own it, right? No matter where you go, no matter where your job lands you in the future, it's yours. And I think that, I've told my career story on one of the past Women in Tech ones, and there was a time when I was fresh out of college, I did my whole software, I was a software engineer, and there was a time when there was a lot less work to do. And I had it was awesome. Like I went to work at 9, I left at 4, I didn't have anything to do all day. And I started getting worried. Like, I don't know how to do anything, looking at job postings, I'm like, don't know how to do that. Don't know how to do that. So, like, I think it's important no matter what is to like dive in and learn as much as you can with the opportunity in front of you. And, back to somebody else's point, even about imposter syndrome and things like that, when you build, for me at least, I build a lot of confidence when I know how to really do something. And all of a sudden, even if it's one thing that like, I know like how to do email templates, like there's no tomorrow, whatever the thing is that you've got to do a lot of at your job, you dive so deep into that, you become an expert in something, and then it becomes another thing, and then another thing, and your confidence builds and grows. But if you just scratch the surface too much, that'll be a little bit of a mistake, I think. That's my personal opinion. And like I said, I don't know if it was I spent probably a good several months just like, going to work late, leaving early, all that stuff. And, I'm glad that I jumped out and was like, I gotta go figure out how to do stuff and get some hands-on experience. So that's always my biggest tip is get as much hands-on, whatever you're doing now, just dive as deep as you can and learn it. Because it's yours, no one can take it. That'd be what I would say.
I would agree with that 100%. Mm-hmm. It also builds your confidence a lot. When you become the person that somebody else goes to on a single topic, that's a really good confidence builder.
Yeah, I had this similar situation where I was at a huge corporation for a long time, and they just had me doing user setups and reporting and, data updates. And like, I kept asking, like, I want to build automation. Like I got certified because you asked me to, and like, I really want to do this stuff. And they wouldn't. Like, they kept saying, yeah, we'll get it to you. And they didn't. And so like, I just found another job where I drank from the fire hose for 2 years, and it was kind of a nightmare. But now where I'm at, it's like, I know what I'm doing, and it's amazing because I can like walk on, and I helped troubleshooting like in the first 3 weeks. So it was like, you can learn it. And like Deena said, like, you own it, it's yours, no one can take it away from you. And don't get imposter syndrome because you're surrounded by giants that have been doing this for like 30 years. That's another thing. So.
It's hard. Imposter syndrome is so real. It's so real. I think we all have it at different times.
I love these events, and I always come out of these things with connections I wouldn't have had otherwise, as a testament to the importance of networking. But I love hearing about people's journeys. It's one of my favorite things about what I do as a Salesforce recruiter is, hearing about how people got involved with the platform and where they see themselves going and really what makes them tick. And I thank you both for sharing your insight and your wisdom and your experience with us tonight.